All right, hello, Fuck. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of Hero Highlight, where we talk about our D&D characters, our campaigns, and their worlds. I am Void.
I'm Chloe.
And we are going to go over our weirdest and our Mary Sue characters. And we're defining Mary Sue as basically any character that lacks flaws or weaknesses, or they're just kind of basic in terms of D&D. If we have a fantasy world, why are we sticking with the basics? So we're going to call those Mary Sues, and by weirdest I mean most monstrous, the least like the playable, like, stock characters that there are. So we're going to get into what we have created in that sense. So, what's your Mary Sue?
You did that backwards, you know.
Did what backwards?
Your thesis.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. You said monstrous, then Mary Sue. Sorry. The English person in me is angry. Okay. My Mary Sue is a character named Catrice. She is a human fighter with a protection champion archetype and a soldier background. That's literally all I have on her, really. I've got a few, like, traits and ideals, but she's like, she's the most basic character you can ever create in D&D. She's human, she's a fighter, which is probably one of the most easiest classes to play.
Because you just punch or swing, right?
Yeah. Because it's not like with a barbarian where you have rage, or with any of the other, like, classes, like, it's like rogue, sneak attack, or just magic.
Yeah, I think anything magic pretty much takes you out of the Mary Sue, depending on how you use it. Unless you're doing a wizard with a magic missile.
True.
That's kind of Mary Sue.
Or a fireball. The stored up fireball rings.
Yeah, it's... God damn it.
So for Catrice, she's very much wanting, like, independence, and, I have this thing where it's, like, she made a terrible mistake in battle, and she got, like, kind of shoved away from the army, but I don't remember what that is anymore.
Did you play as her? Or was she a concept character?
I think I was planning on playing with her, but it just never happened, so she became a concept character. But it's like she isn't very trusting of new people because of just the people that she's lost. The drum.
So she has weakness, but not, like... How I don't know, like that not trusting people?
I feel like that's just a trait of D&D.
Yeah, it's kind of a trope.
Yeah, so it's a basic trope of D&D, so aka Mary Sue.
it's the basic bitch.
Yeah.
And then the lack of flaws is, like, she has flaw, like, she doesn't trust people, but that's not, like, a flaw of...
dramatic proportions.
Yeah.
So, like, Lyta's probably gonna be, like... Oh, I remember. Lyta sleeps with her back to the wall. She can't trust anybody.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a flaw of just... I don't know, it adds some character to it, but it's like the I don't trust people is so played out, it feels almost plain.
Yeah. And it's just, like, it's the easiest thing to pick, honestly. It's like, oh... Because, but, like, typically when you're choosing your ideals, your personality traits, the bonds and the flaws, it's like, those are the things that really build a character. And if you choose the most basic things, you're going to have a basic character.
You kind of end up with just the anti-hero trope of, you kind of pull a Wolverine of, yeah, I'm strong and I don't trust anyone and I'm the lone wolf, but I'm part of this party for whatever convenience reason.
Yeah, that's definitely the X-Men.
Yeah, they play up the anti-hero probably the most notably.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, the Mary Sues are pretty boring just because they are Mary Sues. So the one that I have is actually a character we've mentioned before, Minnie, and she's not a Mary Sue in the sense of, like, yours was, of human fighter. She was a gnome. I don't remember her class.
Yeah, Ranger, maybe?
Ranger something. It didn't really matter.
Nature thing.
Maybe Druid.
Yeah, oh, Druid, I bet it was.
Probably Druid. So, Gnome Druid, which is like, oh yeah, that's weird. Gnomes are pretty weird. But she was just short. Like, that was it. Like, she was just short, and her one thing that made her unique was she would use tarot cards in order to help guide her decisions. So she wouldn't even make her own decisions with the consequences of it. She would pull tarot cards, and then anytime something went wrong, she'd just be like, "That's what the tarot said." Like, it was kind of basic. So that's,
Always pushing off the blame.
yeah, of like, it was never her fault. She didn't decide anything for herself. She didn't have to make a lot of weird decisions. Not weird, but like big decisions.
Yeah.
And then she was just kind of like the sunshine, happy character, tries to make friends with everyone. Like, it works in theory. You could make that type of character really interesting, but the way that we were playing it, it just wasn't. And it was just kind of, she was there and she would just kind of participate and she would just chime in when they needed someone to be kind of cutesy or unpredictable or just small, but she just was pretty bare bones. Like, she's not memorable because of that, but she's my most basic. I only get weirder from here. I actually just lean into the whole monster thing. So let's jump into your weird now.
So I've actually brought up this character before as well. It's my first and favorite, Lida. I know she didn't really sound that monstrous, but for my monstrous, I tend to stick a lot more humanoid. So Lida is a halfling, and the other character I was thinking about doing was Danira, which is wingy bitch.
Yeah, she's an ASMR.
Yeah.
But that's a person with wings, essentially.
Yeah. And I really think that has to do a lot with just how it's a bit of escapism. So I want to kind of like put myself into the fantasy world and like put myself and my traits into those situations. So I choose very humanoid characters, and I give them a lot of my same personalities. So some characters will have like, I knit, so they'll knit, or I love books, so they'll love books.
Yeah, because you did say that one of your characters just brought a book, and whenever they didn't want to be part of the party dynamic, kind of, they would just sit and read. So they were there without having to be there.
Yeah. Yeah, and like we'll bring up a character later, but she is a flute player because I used to play the flute in high school. It was a way to reconnect with my background, and so it's just parts of me that I'm putting out into the world because I want to share it.
Yeah.
So yeah, Lida, she's tiny. That's about the only monstrous thing about her.
But that is your weirdest, just because your characters tend to fit that type of character that you can relate to. So it's not weirdest, but she is the weirdest, mainly because of her backstory, though.
True. She's got a very like traumatic backstory. I do not have that dramatic backstory. I know I just said a lot of like, oh yeah, they're parts of me, but not that much. Not her.
It's not literal. It's the character traits and some of what they do now.
Yeah.
But then you make up the backstory because you can.
Yeah. And that was always like an interesting thing with me for Lida is that I never had a really set background for her, so it's like it just kept getting worse and worse and worse.
Okay. And then do you play her weirdly at all because of those traumas?
Not a lot. Just because like there aren't a lot of just triggers in her everyday adventuring life. But that was also because like I didn't get to play her a crap ton.
Yeah, we switched campaigns a lot and we had trouble keeping the group together. But yeah, you did have her hair changes colors with her mood. And that is definitely a unique thing about her. And that would be noticeable to other players if she's scared her hair gets whiter. So the players, in theory, would be able to look at her and go, oh, this is what's going on.
Yeah, I think I did try to include that once, but nobody really picked up on it, just because it wasn't such a well-known thing yet. So it was like, oh yeah, it was like, oh, like we're in this situation. Her hair's kind of getting a little light-colored.
Yeah, her hair's kind of like a mood ring, which makes her unique, because that's not a normal thing for the halflings, but that is a unique thing that would make her more on the weird side.
True.
So she definitely is your weirdest, but when you compare that to my kind of bare bones character, it definitely is different how you play versus how I play, even though we're in the same campaigns most of the time.
Yeah.
So my weirdest character is one that I haven't played, but I've wanted to play for a while, and it is a Drider character, but with the ability to turn into a human form. So it's kind of like a shifter, kind of like a werewolf, but spider. Um, so his name's Avery, but his weirdest thing is that he is a blind character. So this is a in his human form, he is a dark-haired, smaller, quiet, brooding man, boy, whatever age I put him at. I usually tend to play like 30s, late 20s, those types of characters.
Which is interesting because like I try to tend to go more towards like the younger, which also is like how old I am. So like that 20s, like adult but not adult.
Yeah, but you also tend to be a little bit more immature is not the right word, but
yeah,
you have more childlike tendencies, while I tend to have an old soul essentially. So it makes sense for me to play more 30s types of characters.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's just interesting how it's like, oh, I always kind of want to play older, and you always want to play same or younger.
Yeah.
So that definitely is an interesting dynamic with that. No, and I always tend to play non-human races. So, like, Avery's my Drider, and he's basically think of a Black Widow with the human half. Like, he's pretty basic in design in terms of Driders for me, but, like, most people don't play Driders because they are weirdly shaped, they do weird things, they're not well known, they're not part of the main core group. But I like to play monster characters because I like leaning into the fantasy. I like playing characters that are not my own and trying to get my mindset into that of theirs. So I have no relatability to being blind or having fucking spider legs. Like,
you can try.
I can try. It's not gonna go well though. But I love the challenge of trying to get into the mindset of this character of he's quiet and he's brooding, which is nothing like me. If you've been to my live streams, you know I am a all over the place announcer, this and that, and all over the place. So playing a quiet, brooding character is definitely outside my norm, but I like the escapism in that sense of while you do escapism of you can put yourself into a new world, I don't want to explore myself anymore, so I create a character that's pretty much my exact opposite, and that could be race, that could be adding a disability to change how they perceive the world, it could be just their background of I'm a craftsperson in real life. None of my characters have a craftsman background that I play. So Avery, he's a blind writer, and that made sense to me of just a spider being blind and feeling the world through vibrations. And it's been interesting of kind of playing into that disability fact of just not glorifying it in any sense, but
normalizing it.
Yeah, like I want to normalize it, and while I don't have that experience, I do research, and I don't do it like I'm blind, I can't see it. Like, yeah, you can't see, but like he's still just as badass as the other ones, and I kind of have him use his webbing as a network of feeling vibrations. Of he kind of will try to map out a room and feel the vibrations in there, and he can kind of web his team members so he can tell where they move. So he has more visibility than just, oh, I'm a blind human. Because that put a lot more limitations. Him being a spider allows him that perception, but in a different format of it's vibration-based. And I kind of use some video game inspiration behind that. Of, like, sound's going to be very important. Movement's going to be very important, rather than the color of things. Of, if he has a potion, he's going to be a lot more hesitant to take that.
Did feel the bubbles?
Yeah, and like he's gonna have to rely on his other characters for those types of things, but he's also independent with his vibrations and how he moves about the world, and it's so different from me that it's relaxing to play because I'm puzzle solving, and it's a very different character if I get a break almost.
And that kind of goes for, like, I'm just thinking back to my, like, regular RPs, which we'll, do an episode about later. But, it took me a long time to not do OCs. It took, because, like, I was just terrified of doing characters that already existed in the world that I didn't help create.
Yeah, because they have their own backstories. They have their own thoughts that are pre-established that you now have to adopt into yourself.
Yeah. And that was something I was always scared of about doing. Feel like maybe I'm doing a decent job now, at least.
It definitely takes practice, and you do have to work at it. You do have to, hey, this character canonically has behaved this way. I have to make up a reason why and then act according to that, because sometimes the characters don't do an explicit backstory. Sometimes they do and it makes sense, but sometimes they don't.
Because, like, yeah, character that I'm working with, and she's like, there isn't a lot about him. And so it's just, like, building what we've seen of him in the world and, like, basing his character off of that.
Yeah, making character with those things is more difficult. I like the challenge of it. So I have OCs, but when I do OCs, like our campaign characters, I try to make them so unique that uniqueness forms them. Of the Strider character being blind, that's going to form a lot of his personality. Of he's going to be reserved, he's going to be cautious, he's going to get exhausted by having to use his other senses so much. He's going to get frustrated when people try to baby him. Like, his character kind of forms itself with these assumptions. But if I was to play a normal human, I'm forced to put myself on that because it's like, it's a human. And I don't want to play me. But you want to play you.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that your weird is my normal, and my weird is a character you would never attempt to play.
God, no.
But it worked. And we've played in these campaigns before. Like, I haven't played Avery, but I played Minnie. Yes.
Didn't we do a campaign where we switched bodies?
Did we? What bodies did we switch? What character?
It was Lori and Lida. I think that Lida went into Lori, but Lori did not go into Lida.
Oh, yeah, I think Lori went into the wolf or something. Oh, fuck that shit. So, Lori's my centaur. He's another one of my monster characters. Not monster in terms of, like, spooky, but, like, he's a centaur, and he's 50, and he is
12 feet tall.
12 feet tall, and into history, and he has a very gruff attitude. I'm learning I play a lot of gruff characters. But then we get into Greg, and Greg is my wolf kind that is just big dumb boy. Like, he's my, I want to be goofy, I want to play around. If I'm going to get drunk a lot in the campaign, I usually try to pull Greg. Like, you know what I mean? So I try to fit the character's personality to the group I'm in. That's also another thing of me not wanting to play me, is I can fit a character to a group. If I play me and doesn't fit well, that feels bad.
Yeah.
So that might be something we're doing a lot of self-exploration this episode.
Welcome to therapy.
Yeah, this is just therapy through D&D. But it's part of that of, if you are in a fantasy world and you get to play anything and there's magic and there's artifacts and there is literally endless possibilities to what you can do in your story, what do you gravitate towards? That does say a lot about who you are and what you play and why you play D&D, because that's why this exists. Of, like, I need a break, so I want to play weird, I want to play fantasy, I want to play magic casters, I don't want to just go up and punch it. But then for you, it's more of a comfort thing of, I want to play myself. So it's just interesting how the character you play can say a lot about you, but it's also individualized.
Yeah.
Woo! Do you have any other weird trauma? Do you have any other weird characters you might want to bring up briefly? Do you have any conceptual characters you want to bring up? Have you wanted to play a non-human race? And by non-human, I mean not an elf, not a half-orc, no, halfling. Half-orc would be something, but do you have any that you want to play?
to be fair, I've just never never been something I've explored really.
Mhm.
So there could be a race that's just like, oh my god, I actually really like that one, but it's just like I've never really explored it before.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's just like I can conceptualize what those races look like.
You
That
can
just-
or you cannot?
The races that I play,
Okay.
I can conceptualize what they should look like.
Okay, so it's easier to play because it's familiar?
Yes. Whereas like the other ones, like I have no clue what the fuck they would look like. And I
Okay.
guess that's part of the like building a character and understanding that race. But at the same time, that's just like it just seems a step crazy for me.
Okay, because now you have the challenge of you are playing this character that's different, has different abilities, looks different. It just makes it too complicated to play comfortably.
Yeah, and I bet it's something I could like work up to if I can like continue playing.
Well, your ASMR is a step towards that, because now you gotta think, like, how's she gonna operate with wings? How's she going to... She's not gonna be very sneaky in small spaces, but in big spaces, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, you have to start conceptualizing, like, okay, I'm a human, but I have wings now. What changes for me?
Yeah, and that is going to be something I'm going to be exploring a lot more because she's going to be a lot more open about her wings.
Mhm.
In this campaign because they're already known
Mhm.
by hundreds upon hundreds of people.
Yeah, because she was forced to show her wings off in a place that normally demonizes animalistic traits like wings and like dragons and spiders and all that. So it's an interest. This will push you for sure in this new campaign
Yeah.
because now you have a human, but she's still just as demonized. Like, the only saving grace is that her, I'm going to say, adopted parent is flaunting her off like that and saying she's great because she's an angel. It's too bad that it's demonized.
Yeah.
But that'll definitely be a step for you of, like, you have to conceptualize, I have 10-foot wings. I can't just sprawl out easily of what happens if they get stepped on. What happens if she breaks one?
Yeah.
It adds that layer of complexity.
And trauma.
And more trauma. Good.
Shut up! You just gave me an idea.
A broken wing?
Yeah.
Are you gonna pull an Icarus and have her, like...
No. Fuck.
Well, your other one got burnt. I imagine this one could be burnt, too.
Very true, but no, like she misbehaved, tried to run away. So he
Yeah?
snap.
Snappy, snappy. We'll see how that goes in the campaign, but...
That's also making him a larger villain than he might be.
Yeah, we'll have to see what the vibe is, because I'm adjusting it with the campaign. But that'll be interesting that Daenerys might become your more demon, or your more weird character because of the wings, even though it's pretty...
Standard or basic.
It's kind of basic in my world, but that's because I play pretty much exclusively monsters. Because out of my roster, I have a half mimic, half human. I have the Drider. I have the wolf kind. I have the centaur. I have
Tiefling?
I have the tiefling, yeah. So, like, all of those, like, I don't have a single human. The only human I have is basically the leader of my NPC group. Because I just have, like, NPCs in my world. So she's a bubbly wizard, and I guess she's kind of like Minnie in that way. Again, it's the Mary Sue of, like, I just pick a female wizard, make her bubbly, make her a little bit more decisive than most, and then call it a day. But there's not much about her, but even then I gave her rainbow clothes that are patchwork just because let's make her stand out. She's a wizard.
Oh god, who was I talking to about like wizard levels and the more monochrome you are?
Oh yeah, we're talking about Gandalf the Grey, Gandalf the White.
Yeah.
So the more powerful you get, the more
monochrome your clothes get.
Yeah, because your magic and your reputation is going to speak for itself. But she's like, I think a level 3 or something, so she's still kind of rainbowy, and that's just a fun way to kind of visualize the manifested power, I guess.
Yeah.
Because you could have, like, a boss-ass level something with rainbow powers, but then it just kind of gets messy if it's like, oh, it's this crazy spell, but it's also all these colors, like...
Yeah, it's one of those is like you have to kind of like conceptualize down as you gain higher levels.
Yeah, because you no longer need the uniqueness to be visible. It now becomes the power that of being felt. Just because you have a little bit more time. One of my favorite moments with Avery, my self-claimed weirdest, just because he's Drider and he can change forms like a werewolf. He is talking with someone in the freak show, and they're like, oh shoot, he's missing out on the show because a lot of it is just it's a stage performance, so he can't feel that when it's that far out, that up high. It's an acrobatics act, so they're trying to describe this acrobatics act to him, and he's sitting there just quietly, like, feeling over. I think I gave him a rock to feel the texture of, so that way he could just focus, and that was just a tactile thing that he could do. So he's trying to visualize in his own way of these vibrations and these sensory things of this acrobatics act of my dragonborn doing aerial hoops. So eventually he just kind of goes quiet and he goes, it's like a thunderstorm. Of she's up in the clouds, she's doing all these acts, she's kind of dancing over this, but there's still power behind it because she's this big dragonborn that's showing her power through this. And the really funny thing is because she is a thunder dragonborn, he didn't know that because he can't see her color. But the two of them just have this really great moment of understanding, even though he can't see what her performance looked like, he knows what her performance feels like, and that's exactly what she wanted to get across. But people who watch it, they're just like, they either criticize it or like, yeah, she's dancing, whatever, she's dragonborn, she's supposed to be a monster, why is she dancing, why is she doing these delicate things? But then Avery completely understands it's a thunderstorm of it's the light clouds, but it's this discharge of energy of just these pow moments, but they understood each other in those moments. And she's like, you should do the aerials because you're a spider, you'll be able to hold on to it and feel the vibrations. You can hook up your own web so you won't fall, but you can feel that light with the power combining with all of the movements and all this. So he's not going to be graceful about it because he's not a dancer by any means, but if he was just up in the aerial silks and feeling the movement of it, it might be a lot more freeing for him. So a lot of emotion went into that connection of, I had everything slow down and kind of a spotlight on them of just, this is why I like these characters. Of that was a revelation of, I got to not experience it, but make that comparison the same way he would have. So that was just a really good moment of like, and I'm writing both characters. This is part of the narrative. So it was just me talking about, but I was like, fuck, how is this blind character going to experience a freak show? Like, how freak shows are inevitably visual with what they do, but he's absolutely blind. How is he going to experience this? And he won't be able to feel it because there's so much else going on. So it was that kind of realization of, now he knows it feels the same as a thunderstorm. So that's a good story with my weird character and how I kind of connect with them that way of like, I can feel for them.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but he vaguely sounds like Toph from Last Airbender.
Yeah, and Toph's a really good example of a blind character that's not limited to the blindness of, Toph also uses the vibrations through the earth and is able to use their powers in a way that's empowering them, but there's still these jokey moments of like, look, a piece of paper! I have no clue what it says. Like, whatever that quote is. So, yes, it might be the blind archetype, but it's a positive blind archetype. I'd rather that than the feeble, oh, we have to carry him around type of blind character. No, I like having these disabilities not be disabilities in these worlds.
And I think an interesting thing in just, like, our campaigns, like, all the ones we've been in, is that they've been very inclusive with the characters. So, like, if you wanted to play that blind character in a variety of different campaigns that we've been in, like, it would have been okay. And, like, there's actually been talks about sexuality with our characters. It's like,
Yeah.
I make a lot of my characters bisexual or like lesbians, just because heteronormativity is a joke.
Mm-hmm. And if it's a fantasy world, we don't need to bring that into that world. We don't need to bring the discrimination in. We could, but that feels uncomfortable for me, so I tend to make anything LGBT very normal. I tend to make disabilities more empowered, and it changes the perception, but I have a deaf character, I have a blind character, I have a double amputee character, and that's not what makes them the freaks in this. It's the animalistic traits. It's their physical race, and not even just black or white. It's the you are a horse, you are a spider. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to bring that real world kind of pain and discrimination into this. It can be a note, but I want to explore it through the fantasy lens of, let's explore discrimination through you're a fucking spider and not through you're darker than I am.
Yeah.
And then, or you're gay or you're straight. It's like, okay, whatever, who cares?
Yeah. Because it's even harder, like, when you get, like, races that have, like, the darker skin tones, like drows.
Mm-hmm.
They are predispositioned to being a darker skin tone because of where they live.
Mm.
And it's just like, no.
Yeah, no, I consider drows the same level as elves, because elves you usually think is very white, and drows you think of usually very dark gray, but drows are not discriminated against in my world because they're just elves. They're just darker elves, like...
Well, the interesting is, like drows do, like, live in, like, mountains and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting is, like, you could have the difference between a translucent drow and a just dark drow. So, like, being able to blend, but also... you also get that drow that has like, molded to their surroundings.
Yeah. No, and that's actually that's praised in this world of, like, you don't need to be that you need to be that privileged race, not that color, not that type of person, not, you know what I mean? So I try to not bring that type of stuff into that weirdness of Avery's not weird because he's blind. He's weird because he's a spider.
Yeah.
And, like, we've talked about Ruby a little bit. She's my other Drider. She's in the freak show because she's a spider. And she just happens to be a very dark woman because she's a spider. She's a tarantula. She's gonna be dark. Mm-hmm. Like, she's the color of her fur, and her skin tone's just that of her fur.
Yeah.
So the color and the disabilities are never gonna be what makes them part of my freak show. It's just their race and the rules that have been in this world of there are no quote-unquote non-human races. Mm-hmm. So that's just something we bring into the what is weird and what is a Mary Sue. And I don't like making orientation weird or disability weird or color weird. So that was today's episode of Hero Highlights, but we have a character quote of the episode. Yes. We remembered.
Yes. So this is gonna be my character Lita. At this point, she's already met Lori, and she's talking to him as well as another character from a previous campaign. So the character glances over to the giant horse dude. Spoon dude. Then she looks around the room more, and she sees the other character, Prissy Chick.
I love that, because that is exactly how those characters were seen to that, to Lita. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening to this episode. We will have more out soon. I'd love to hear about your characters and what's the weirdest character you've played? Because the most normal, we know what the most normal is. So tell me about your weirdest characters, weirdest stories, weirdest this and that. Leave it all in the comments. But I will see you guys soon in the next episode.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.